Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling something a lot of you have requested.
Yeah.
NIST's Cybersecurity Framework 2.0.
Ooh, yeah.
If you're listening to this, you already know this is kind of a big deal in the cybersecurity world.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, the updated gold standard for protecting systems and data these days, and you
Right.
sent in some really great material on this, and I think our mission today is to really pull out
Yeah,
the aha moments, the stuff that makes you say,
totally.
"Okay, now I get why 2.0 matters."
It's definitely more than just like a refresh.
Right.
There's a real shift happening here, I think, in cybersecurity,
Yeah.
reflecting how it's become like this core business function, not just a tech issue anymore.
Right. It's like cybersecurity used to be about, building a moat around your castle.
Yeah,
But now your castle is part of this like bustling city. It's
Big-
interconnected. You need to think about security in a much broader context.
exactly. And that's one of the key takeaways, I think, of CSF 2.0. It's about risk management woven into the fabric of an organization, not just bolted on security department.
So for folks who haven't fully geeked out on 2.0 yet,
Right.
let's back up a bit.
Sure.
NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, they're the ones behind this framework.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like a law or regulation.
Correct. It's a set of guidelines,
Hmm.
best practice framework. But here's the thing.
Okay.
Even though it's voluntary, it's become so widely adopted, even internationally, that it sets the de facto standard in many industries.
Uh-huh.
Think of it like the Michelin star system for restaurants.
Okay.
Not everyone has to aim for it, but it signifies a level of quality and rigor that everyone recognizes.
Okay, that's a great analogy.
Thanks.
So why the update? Was 1.1 just not cutting it anymore?
Well, remember that SolarWinds attack back in 2020.
Oh, yeah.
That was a wake-up call for a lot of organizations, showing how vulnerable even sophisticated systems can be to supply chain attacks. CSF 2.0 puts a huge emphasis on supply chain risk management, recognizing that your security is only as strong as the weakest link in your network.
Right, because what good is locking your front door if the attacker can just walk in through a side entrance that belongs to a third-party vendor? Okay, so supply chain is one big change.
Right.
What else is radically different in 2.0?
They've added a sixth core function,
Oh,
govern.
okay.
In the past, there was identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. Now, govern sits on top of all of those.
Ooh, govern sounds kind of intimidating. Like, am I about to get audited by the cybersecurity police?
Not exactly.
Yeah.
It's about baking cybersecurity into your organization's DNA, making it part of your strategy, your culture, your decision-making at all levels.
Okay.
Think about it. Let's say you're a fintech company.
Mm-hmm.
Customer data protection is paramount for maintaining trust and complying with regulations.
Right.
Govern is about ensuring that your cybersecurity strategy aligns with that core business need.
So it's not just about having the latest firewall or intrusion detection system. It's about aligning your cybersecurity posture with your business goals.
Exactly. And this alignment can look different depending on the industry.
Okay.
A manufacturing company might prioritize securing operational technology to prevent production shutdowns.
Sure.
A healthcare organization might focus on protecting patient data to comply with HIPAA.
Okay, so we've got this new govern function, and it's all about big picture strategy. But let's zoom back in on the original 5 functions. Identify, protect, detect, respond, recover.
Yeah,
They're still the core building blocks, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the beauty of CSF 2.0 is how they all work together like a well-oiled machine.
It's like a cybersecurity life cycle, right? You start by identifying what you need to protect.
Right.
Then you put safeguards in place. You set up systems to detect threats. You have a plan for responding when something happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a strategy for recovering and getting back to business.
Precisely. And 2.0 does a fantastic job of highlighting those connections.
Okay.
For example, Identify isn't just a one-time inventory check. It's an ongoing process of understanding your assets, your data flows,
Mm-hmm.
and the evolving threat landscape.
Mm-hmm.
This directly informs how you implement protect measures,
Got it.
making sure your defenses are aligned with your actual vulnerabilities.
Okay, that makes sense. It's not just a checklist, it's a dynamic process. So
Yeah.
you've got a good grasp of the what and the why of CSF 2.0. But how does an organization actually do this? Like, how do they take this framework from concept to reality? I'm guessing that's where implementation tiers and profiles come in.
You got it. These are the tools that help organizations put CSF 2.0 into practice.
Okay, great. So let's
Let's dive into those.
let's dive into those a little bit.
Okay. Implementation tiers are like benchmarks for cybersecurity maturity.
Mm.
Think of it as a way to gauge how well your organization is currently managing cyber risks.
Okay, I like benchmarks. Gives
Well,
you a sense of where you stand. So
yeah.
how do these tiers actually work? Is it like a ranking system?
It's more about self-assessment. Tier 1 partial is where many organizations start. Cybersecurity might be addressed in an ad hoc way,
Hmm.
but there's not a comprehensive strategy.
So kind of like flying by the seat of your pants, hoping for the best, but not really prepared for the worst.
Exactly. Then you move up to risk-informed, where management starts to understand the importance of cybersecurity and begins to allocate resources.
Correct.
Repeatable means you have documented processes, you're doing regular risk assessments, you're training your employees. Security is becoming part of your organizational culture.
Got it. So you're moving from reactive to proactive. What about the top tier?
That's adaptive. This is where organizations are constantly learning and evolving their cybersecurity practices based on the latest threats, new technologies, and their own experiences. They're actively sharing information and collaborating with others in the cybersecurity community.
So it's like they've got a black belt in cybersecurity. They're not just offending, they're anticipating and adapting.
Exactly. Now, once you've assessed your current tier, you create what's called a current profile. This documents your organization's current cybersecurity posture based on the 5 core functions.
Right, so it's a snapshot of where you are right now, but
Yeah.
then you also create a target profile, right?
Yes. This is where you define your desired cybersecurity state.
Hmm.
You're essentially saying, this is where we want to be.
And I'm guessing the gap between those two profiles is where the magic happens.
Absolutely. Conducting a gap analysis helps you pinpoint the differences between your current and target profiles, highlighting the areas where you need to focus your efforts.
Okay, so this is starting to feel very actionable. You're not just reading a theoretical framework, you're using it to create a roadmap for improvement.
That's one of the strengths of CSF 2.0. It provides a practical and adaptable methodology for organizations to implement cybersecurity best practices.
Speaking of practical, you mentioned some supplementary resources that NIST provides. I know one of them is those quick start guides. Those sound like a lifesaver for organizations that are just starting out with the framework.
Absolutely. The Quick Start Guides are designed to demystify the process, providing step-by-step guidance on how to get started with CSF 2.0. They also address common questions and challenges organizations face during implementation.
Sort of like a CSF 2.0 for dummies.
No, maybe not for dummies, but definitely designed to be accessible and easy to follow.
Okay, good. No one wants to feel like they need a PhD in cybersecurity just to understand the framework. What about those community profiles you mentioned? Those sound intriguing.
Community profiles are a game changer for applying CSF 2.0 in specific industry contexts. They're like tailored versions of the framework created by groups of experts within particular sectors.
So, for example, there might be a community profile for financial institutions or healthcare providers.
Exactly. Let's say you're working in the energy sector. There's a community profile specifically focused on the unique cybersecurity challenges and regulatory requirements for that industry. It helps organizations leverage the CSF in a way that makes sense for their specific operational environment.
That's incredibly valuable. It saves organizations from having to reinvent the wheel and allows them to leverage the collective wisdom of others in their field.
And beyond those resources, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework website is a treasure trove of information. You'll find the full text of the framework, FAQs, blog posts, webinars, even case studies from organizations that have successfully implemented CSF 2.0.
It sounds like they've really thought of everything. They're holding your hand every step of the way.
They're definitely committed to making the framework as accessible and usable as possible. But even with all these resources, let's be honest, implementing something like CSF 2.0 can feel daunting. Where would you suggest someone begin if they're serious about putting it into practice?
That's a great question. It's like standing at the foot of a mountain, knowing you need to climb it, but feeling a bit overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the challenge.
Exactly. And the first step is to remember that you don't have to climb the whole mountain in a day.
Yeah, you can start by focusing on like one specific area, like maybe assessing your current cybersecurity posture or tackling a particular risk that's keeping you up at night.
I love that approach.
Yeah,
It's about breaking down the task into manageable chunks.
right. It's about progress, not perfection.
Mm.
But even with a phased approach, getting buy-in from stakeholders can be tough. You
Yeah.
know, especially when budgets are tight.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity can sometimes feel like a nice to have rather than a must have. How do you convince people that it's worth the investment?
I think it's all about framing the conversation in terms of business impact. Instead of talking about these abstract threats, connect cybersecurity to the things your stakeholders care about most.
So, for example, if you're talking to the CFO, you might highlight the potential financial losses from a data breach
Right.
or ransomware attack.
Exactly. And don't forget about reputational damage.
Oh, yeah.
In today's hyper-connected world, a cybersecurity incident can go viral in minutes, eroding customer trust and impacting your brand value.
Yeah, it's like the cost of prevention is always going to be less than the cost of a major security incident.
Absolutely. And that's a message that resonates with business leaders.
Okay, so you've got buy-in, you've assessed your current state, you're starting to implement the framework. How do you know if it's actually working? What are some signs that you're on the right track?
I think one key indicator is a reduction in the number and severity of security incidents.
So you're not just checking boxes, you're actually seeing tangible results.
Precisely. You might also see improvements in your incident response times. The faster you can detect and contain a threat, the less damage it can do.
Makes sense. And it's not just about reacting to incidents, it's about proactively identifying and mitigating risks before they become problems.
Exactly. And that's where CSF 2.0 really shines. It helps organizations shift from a reactive security posture to a proactive one.
You know, one thing that really impressed me about CSF 2.0 is how much emphasis NIST placed on gathering stakeholder feedback during the development process. They didn't just create this in a vacuum.
Right.
They reached out to organizations of all sizes across different industries to get their input.
Yeah, it's a testament to their commitment to making the framework as practical and relevant as possible. They understood that they needed to hear from the people who would actually be using it.
And that feedback really shaped the final product, right? Like those community profiles we talked about earlier, those were a direct result of stakeholder input.
Absolutely. Organizations were saying, hey, this framework is great, but we need more guidance on how to apply it to our specific industry. And NIST listened.
So it's a living document. It's constantly evolving and improving based on real-world experiences and feedback.
That's what makes it so powerful. It's not just a static set of guidelines. It's a dynamic framework that can adapt to the ever-changing threat landscape.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. We've covered so much ground from the nuts and bolts of CSF 2.0 to the strategic considerations of implementation.
It's been a pleasure unpacking all of this with you. I hope our listeners feel equipped to take this knowledge and apply it to their own cybersecurity journey.
Yeah, me too. But before we let you go, I want to leave you with one final thought. We've talked a lot about the technical aspects of CSF 2.0,
Right.
but at the end of the day, cybersecurity is about people.
That's so important to remember.
Yeah,
Technology can only take you so far.
exactly. It's about creating a culture of cybersecurity awareness and vigilance within your organization. It's about training your employees to recognize phishing emails, to practice good password hygiene, to report suspicious activity.
It's about empowering everyone to be a part of the solution.
And that's where real cybersecurity resilience comes from. So as you embark on your CSF 2.0 journey, remember that it's not just about the technology, it's about the people.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into NIST CSF 2.0.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe. We'll see you on the next deep dive.